Hey guys, thanks for stopping by today. Today this video is going to be about how to choose an avian vet for your pet bird. Now, choosing an avian vet is pretty important, and let me tell you why. So, birds tend to be more fragile than other animals, especially a mammal, and so they can fall ill and get very critically sick pretty fast. In fact, they have a pretty high mortality rate compared to dogs and cats and, larger animals. And on top of that, birds tend to hide their illness. And so it's oftentimes, we don't even as pet owners recognize how sick our bird is until they're very sick. And so that's why it's so important to have a good avian vet that you trust, that will do wellness exams and help you when your bird is sick. So in this video, I'm going to cover a lot of things avian vet. I'm going to talk about the importance of preventative health care with our pet birds, what is wellness, and I'm going to talk about what to look for in an avian vet clinic, as well as what avian vets are looking for in your bird when they're doing these wellness exams, these annual exams that they highly recommend. And finally, we're going to talk about, financial planning and long-term health care for our pet birds, because they do live a long time, and like any creature, they're going to get sicker as they get older. And so having a plan, an action plan, is really important. Now, before I jump into all this, let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name's Diane Burrows, and I'm the founder and CEO of BirdSupplies.com. I'm a licensed clinical psychotherapist by training, and I also am a behavior specialist. I've worked with behavior for over 30 years in psychiatric hospitals, private practice, in school settings. And when I got parrot fever a number of years ago, I decided to take my behavioral specialty training and help parrot owners, because a lot of the concepts are the same. It's applied behavior analysis, and like I said, the strategies are the same, and just using my skill set to help parrot owners has been a pretty rewarding thing for me. Now, an interesting statistic that I ran across as I was preparing for this video is that only about 12.4% of bird owners actually take their birds to the vet. That pretty much shocked me, I'll have to be honest. I didn't know if it's like, is it the cost, or is it because avian vets tend to be hard to find? Is it because people tend to be more prone to beginner birds? I don't know, I just thought it was a sad statistic. But you watching this shows that you are one of the caring parrot caretakers. And so a good avian vet is really going to help you with keeping your pet well. It is like a partner in wellness. Think of it like that, but also someone that you can rely on when your bird does get ill. Now, people ask all the time, what is wellness? Well, wellness is the active process of making your parrot care choices, making appropriate parrot care choices toward a healthy and fulfilling life for your pet bird. So there's actually a veterinarian school in California that specializes in parrot wellness. It's called the Richard M. Schubel School of Veterinary Medicine, and they've got a parrot wellness program. And they outline 6 different things that constitute parrot wellness. First, of course, is prevention, preventative health care, those annual wellness exams, and the next one's going to be dietary needs. Birds do have specialized dietary needs, and there have been a lot of myths about how to feed a parrot over the years, but we have narrowed it down to some really great and sound nutritional advice on what parrots need in order to stay and maintain nutritional health throughout their lifespan. It also involves appropriately enriching your pet bird. They're so smart and intelligent, and they're flock animals, and so they need a lot of enrichment and socialization. And then they also need a lot of behavior training. Now, actually, there's 2 different camps of behavior training that parrots need. First of all, they need to learn their foundational behaviors from us. Most of our pet birds have been removed from their parrot parents' care and been hand-reared by humans, which don't know how to teach a parrot to be a parrot, quite frankly. And so they need some foundational behaviors, like what's safe to eat, how to groom themselves appropriately, some of those different strategies. But they also need behavioral training in terms of what are the expectations in our home-based flock. And so training our birds appropriately is really doing them a huge favor, and it's part of wellness. Another part of wellness is pain prevention and management. Like any creature, as they get older, a bird is going to experience different levels of pain if it gets injured or starts experiencing arthritis or whatever. Pain prevention is a huge thing in pet birds because they tend to hide it. Just like they hide their illnesses and injuries, they hide their pain. But if they're in terrible pain, their quality of life quite frankly sucks, and they it affects everything in their well-being. In fact, we know that being in terrible pain is probably one of the most horrific things that you can ever go through, and it's that intense for our birds too. And then the last thing the Shoebolt team talks about is pediatric and geriatric parrot care. So parrots need different care when they're young babies and growing up into adolescence, and different care as they're aging and becoming geriatric patients. So that's what we mean by wellness. Now, if you think about it, all of these different 6 strategies actually encompass the whole bird. That is, they encompass the bird's physical needs, their mental health needs, and their behavioral needs. And they span the lifespan of a bird from pediatric to geriatric. So that's really cool to know. Now, prevention is so important for our pet birds because birds do get injured and sick despite our best efforts. I have a couple stories I'll tell you about later in this video. But even despite our best efforts, things happen. And so we need to know how to spot illness. But first, let's talk about what is an avian vet looking for when they're doing a wellness check. So they start off with kind of the head region. They're looking in the eyes, the nares, which is their nasal cavities, their ears, inside their mouth, and they're looking for any signs of illness, things that might not be obvious to you as a parrot owner. I don't usually open my bird's mouth and look at their little slit in the back of their oral cavity that can get plaque on it when they're sick. I do watch for nasal discharge because I do know that, but at these wellness exams, the vet is looking at the entire parrot's body systems. So they start off with the head, then they move on to the skin and the feathering. Feathering is often a first clue of, dietary issues or any signs that a parrot maybe having even mental health issues, because if they're not taking care of their own feathers, that's a big deal for a bird. So parrots do have a tendency to overgroom or undergroom, or some of them even pull their feathers out. We call that feather plucking. They can give themselves follicular damage when they pull these feathers out. They can also get cysts under their skin, just like you or I do, and have skin damage from accidents and falls. The vet's also going to look for tumors, any growths or wounds and that sort of thing when they're looking at the skin and feathers. Then they're going to move on to the bones and joints. So they want to make sure that your bird has the range of motion that it needs, that its joints rotate and work correctly, and they're going to kind of flex them a little bit, and they're looking for things like arthritis and pain and that sort of thing. And finally, next they'll move on to soft tissue evaluation, where they're palpating the crop and the body cavity and the muscular structure and all that, and they're looking for things like is the bird getting adequate food intake? What's the body composition? Is it underweight, overweight? Are there any abnormal lumps or bumps that need to be addressed? Those are this kind of things, just like your doctor when they're doing a wellness exam on you. And finally, they're going to look at your bird's feet and claws. Feet and claws can get quite intense, and imagine perching on your feet all day long and can't ever get off your feet. And so birds do have a tendency to get ulcers and lesions on the bottom of their feet, especially if they don't have appropriate sized perches, and they want to make sure that the bird's foot joints are working correctly. That affects their ability to exercise, and their toenails even can tell a vet whether body functions are working correctly. So look, the vet is able to do that. A good avian vet's able to do that probably in less than 5 minutes. In fact, my avian vet did it while he was grooming my pet one time, and I didn't even realize that's what he was doing because he did it so expertly and so quickly. So the whole idea is that they want to do it quickly so that they're not stressing out the bird. And it may feel like, oh gosh, am I getting my money's worth? Well, you are, because they know what they're doing. They're specialists in birds, remember that. So finally, a vet that is someone you want to work with is going to address concerns regarding your home care of your pet. I mean, you're the one that's with it the other 364 days a year. And so they're going to talk to you about things like proper diet, caging, exercise and enrichment, any behavior issues you might have, grooming and bathing issues that your bird has. And they're going to want to address those things because, of course, you properly caring for your pet helps them do their job better. So, and they love birds anyway, otherwise it wouldn't be an avian vet. So, you know, they might include things like a special diet, vitamin supplements, behavioral videos, things like that to help you improve upon your parrot husbandry skills. So again, you know, you're going to want, as a bird lover, you're going to want an avian vet in your corner who understands prevention as well as treatment, avian specific treatment, since their body systems are so different than a mammal's. And having someone that will coach you when you need it is super important. Now, when you get into that vet office, you can look at a number of things to help you know whether you trust that clinic or not. You can look at things like, okay, did the receptionist properly ask the questions in order to know how urgent my pet bird issue is, so that they could get the bird in a timely manner. Birds do kind of tend to go downhill pretty quickly when they get sick, and so you want to make sure that they're asking you the correct questions to treat an urgent matter if it is an urgent matter. You're also going to want to make sure that they know how to handle a bird and restrain it appropriately, and that the vet techs are asking you in-depth questions about your parrot husbandry practices. They're not doing it to judge you or anything. They're doing it to coach you so that you can do as much preventative care up front. The more you optimize your parrot care for prevention and wellness, the longer your pet's going to live and the healthier it's going to remain throughout its lifespan. That's why they're asking you questions, even if they seem a little nosy. You know, it's helpful to answer those. And then you're gonna, you know, also want to see how the avian vet treats your bird when he's in there. You know, so like for instance, I had mentioned how Dr. Labonde, my avian vet, literally gave a good, thorough physical exam of my pet, and I even though I was standing right there and I know birds, like, I mean, they're my passion, you know, so I know. I didn't even realize that's what he was doing because he did it so expertly and quickly. So that's what prevention's all about in parrot wellness. But what do you do when your parrot gets sick? How do you know a parrot is sick when in fact this creature is actually doing its very best to hide any illness, injuries, and pain from you? So you're going to want to look for a number of things. And I have set up kind of, for my birds, I do a morning inspection with each of them pretty much first thing. I mean, that's one of the biggest first things on my agenda when I get up in the morning, is to make sure, is to feed them and to just do a visual checklist through my head. I'm looking at things like, are their droppings normal? I'm looking at, are they eating? Are they eating out of their food bowl? Are they, you know, perching oddly, maybe a drooping wing, or maybe their feathers are all fluffed up or something? Are they on the bottom of their cage? That's a bad sign, as is, you know, any kind of respiratory illness where they're breathing so heavily that their body and tail is bobbing up and down. I'm also looking, are they more inactive than usual, or are they excited to see me when I enter the room in the morning? If they're quiet and inactive, that's a red flag for me. Of course, I look, you know, around the cage to see if there's any blood. Has anybody broken a blood feather, anything like that? Are they more tired than usual? Is there discharge from their nose or their eyes? So I make it a point to look at their face and interact with them every morning. And then, are they grooming themselves appropriately? So, just a quick rundown every morning will help me to know if my bird is healthy that day. Another thing that I do is I have a gram kitchen scale that I use. I used to have a fancy bird scale that had a perch on it that cost, $150 or whatever. A kitchen scale that you can get off Amazon for under $25 is just as good. All you got to do is train your bird to stand on the platform. So you want a gram scale because that is kind of pretty minute measurement weight. And so if you keep a weekly log of your bird's weight, like pick a time, Sunday morning before breakfast, weigh your birds each week and keep a log. When your bird starts losing weight, start paying attention to it. If your bird loses about 10% of their body weight, you're going to want to get in touch with your vet and figure this out. What's causing your bird to not eat as much and what's ailing them. And so oftentimes the only way you're going to know if they're losing weight, which is one of the most important signs that your bird is sick, is to routinely weigh them each week. And so, like I said, I do it every week, and then I don't rely on just picking them up because, for instance, let's take my African gray, Smokey. He weighs about 400 grams. And so if I picked him up and he's still on my fingers, I don't think I'd be able to tell accurately if he lost 40 grams. It's not quite 2 ounces of weight. It's a little bit less than 2 ounces, but that would be a critical level of weight loss for him. So if I have weighed him routinely and then all of a sudden I'm seeing, okay, he was 400 last week, now he's 390, and if that keeps going down, then I'm going to want to get in touch with my vet. So the point is you can't always tell if your bird is losing weight just by picking it up. You really have to go through the motions of weighing them each week, and it's pretty easy. As soon as you train them get them to stand on that platform, give them a treat, they're going to want to stand on the platform and get weighed. It's not painful or anything to them. And so just getting into these routines of really examining your pet to see what its health is like on any given day is pretty huge. So we had talked about what to look for in a vet clinic, but let's talk a little bit now about what is a certified avian vet. What's different about them? What's so special about an avian vet than the person you take your dog to? So an avian vet has actually undergone almost twice or more even of advanced doctoral level programming to learn about a bird's body systems. In fact, I believe the requirement is that they have gone through 6 years of high quality full-time practice experience at an avian clinic post veterinarian school graduation. They've also taken numerous continuing education courses, bird-specific continuing education courses. They've practiced writing and demonstrated that they can write scientifically based case reports about birds, and they've taken a rigorous written exam in order to get this certification. So it's a really big deal. I mean, if you've had to work 6 years to get a certification, you know how big those are, and how much expertise you can gain just by that level of practice, if you will. So that is so way over and above than what a general veterinarian is going to get. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't general veterinarians out there that can treat your bird. I mean, if you live in a small town and can't access a certified avian vet, you're going to have to settle on someone that does have lesser experience but still knows birds. And so, a resource for you would be to get in touch with the American Board of Veterinary Practitioners. They maintain a list and a certification that people that have concentrated continuing education and learning about species-specific animals can get on, and then they'll refer you to appropriate avian vets. I got on there and their website, which is Abvp, I believe .org, and I kind of toyed around with it. It wasn't as easy as the Association of Avian Vets, where you just put in your zip code and boom, you get the avian vets in your region or in your state. But nevertheless, those are two resources that you can go to. So one is Abvp.org and the other is AAV.org, where you can put in your zip code to find an avian vet. You're going to get a list of, even the zoo practitioners and people that work with poultry farms and research out in the field and that sort of thing. But nevertheless, you'll also get you'll have to weed through it and say who's in private practice or, owns their own clinic, and, get a list there. So I think I talked about what makes an ABVP they've proven that they have knowledge and expertise above and beyond what's required for a general practice veterinarian. We've already talked about what to look for in the actual clinic that you choose, and one thing that I didn't mention when I was talking about the clinic is, if you're talking with your vet and your avian vet or even your general vet that you've had to choose, and they feel like they're kind of stumped, they're not, they might not know a lot about what your bird's issue is. A sign of a good vet is that they do reach out to the journals and get current research on the situation, or they reach out to their colleagues or even a veterinarian school in their locality that they're familiar with who can support them in helping come up with a proper diagnosis, because what's the point of treating a bird if you don't know how to treat, what the treatment is. And so my story that I was going to tell you about this is a number of years ago, my Moluccan Cockatoo, Peachy, he came down sick, very sick. And so I took him to my local avian vet. I was in Colorado Springs at the time, and she felt like he had tumors, like massive tumors in his lungs, really bad. And so she referred me to Dr. Jerry Labonte in Centennial, Colorado, which is a suburb of Denver. So I took Peachy to him the very next day, and Dr. Labonte examined him, and he was just kind of stumped with Peachy's, examination, and I'm putting the pieces together. And so he made an effort to consult with the research, and then he got in touch with the Colorado State University School of Veterinary Medicine, and he had written up a fantastic scientific summary of his examinations, and faxed it over to them, and they were able to read his report and literally diagnose my bird right there on the spot. And so then Dr. Labonte was able to, help me get treatment like within 24 hours of his exam. And so that's a sign of a great vet, someone who's going to really go over and beyond and reach out to study the research, reach out to colleagues, reach out to veterinary schools. Because, like what ended up happening with Peachy is he had a disease called megabacteria, which is actually a fungal disease that small birds get. So Peachy's a big Moluccan cockatoo, and it's very rare for them to get this disorder. So, that wasn't even on Dr. Labonte's mind of how in the world this bird could have got megabacteria. But the vet school was able to put it together for him, and the treatment took about 3 months. And Peachy was touch and go for a long time, but he's still with me today, 25 years later. So that's a sign of a great vet, and I still work with Dr. Labonte with my birds, and he was the one that did the quick exam with Peachy when he went in for his last grooming. That was only a couple of months ago. So, when your vet is asking to do some tests and that sort of thing, a lot of people balk at that. They're like, I don't want to spend $2,000 because those tests can rack up, especially when we're talking about specialized tests for birds. They're not the ordinary tests that you would just do for a dog or a cat. You might want to talk a little deeper with your vet. Ask them, okay, how necessary is this? Do you really feel like you need this test? Anything we can do that might be a little more cost effective? But keep in mind that these are the avian specialists, and if they're working with you financially to support your needs, you know, see if you can figure out a way to get some of these tests done. I have so many people talk with me, you know, because I specialize in feather plucking. I wrote that book back there on feather plucking. And, you know, people will say, well, I took my bird to the vet and they wanted to do all these tests to find out why he was plucking. Well, they do want to do those for a reason, because all the behavior training in the world isn't, you know, going to change a feather plucker if there's a medical condition, an underlying medical condition. And so, you know, these tests do help your vet to diagnose issues, because birds are so prone to hiding their illness. So keep that in mind. And if, you know, for my birds, I kind of have put aside some money for some of these tests. I've also looked into getting pet insurance with them, and you know, it's always in the back of my mind, as an option to help support me getting them the proper treatment if they do fall ill again. So I hope this video was helpful for you. And sorry, someone's at my front door. But if you found it helpful, please give me the thumbs up and think about subscribing to my channel. I'm putting out new videos all the time. They're usually, you know, very much wellness oriented, feather plucking or behavioral oriented. But I'm always putting out new videos and do a lot of research on parrot care. And so if you find my videos helpful, you know, click the bell so that you can get notified when I put out a new video. And so until I put a new video out, maybe next week or something, you know, stay in touch and we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.